Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This video talks about the common argument that is advanced by apologetics when they cannot produce evidence in support of their claims. This argument is known as the "you do not know" argument. YDNK, YDNK argument. The argument is advanced when the apologetic, usually an evolutionist or an atheist, fails to produce evidence of his claims. This is advanced in order to confuse the questioner. This argument, the YDNK argument, is also cited or referred to by some religious scholars who try to defend a sect in a particular religion that is not defendable. They usually say that you will not understand what we understand. If so, this is to mean that you do not know how they how our sect works or what is the basis of our sect, while in the reality they are on the wrong path. This is evident by analyzing their beliefs, which are contrary to the religious book that they are following, that they are claiming to follow. So when one analyzes the religious book and all the scriptures of that particular religion, he comes to know that the beliefs of this sect are inconsistent with the beliefs of these uh, the scriptures, and he comes to the conclusion that this particular sect is a deviated sect and is not consistent with the teachings of that particular religion. But the members of the sect keep on insisting that you will not understand that how our sect is true. You will not understand unless you join our sect. You do not know how our sect works and what our sect is based upon. So this argument of the persons who belong to the sect is based on the fact that it is based on the situation, that it's based on the contrary, that when you fail to produce an evidence to validate a claim, you resort to this behavior, that is, you say that you do not know how it goes or how it works. In contrast, the conclusion of the researcher who has researched this religion is based upon evidence. So in order to confuse the questioner and to deviate from the main topic, this argument is advanced. This argument is also advanced by many evolutionists and atheists while trying to defend their beliefs based on just assertions. When they fail to give you some evidence, then they use this argument that you do not know evolution. I'll give 3 examples of such a situation that has happened to me. Once, Darwin wrote in his book that by means of natural selection, bears can turn to whales. Bears can turn to whales if they take to the aquatic habitat, then they can turn to whales. This statement is present in the unedited version of his book on the origin of species by means of natural selection. This was a Darwinian belief. So when I presented this to an atheist, he said that this will not be there in the Darwinist book, and the actual argument will be that birds and whales have a common ancestor. This is the argument that is advanced by the new evolutionists in order to defend the nonsense that is present in Darwin's book. In the first place, he did not know that this nonsense is present there in the Darwin's book. So he also advanced the fact that you do not know how evolution works, that they too have a common ancestor. In this case, also, there is no proof whatsoever that the whale and the bear have a common ancestor. The series of animals that are presented as intermediate links do not actually resemble the intermediate links between these animals. They are separate animals with separate characteristics, and most of the animal characteristics are based on fossils and sometimes on a few bones only, for example, a skull or a mandible. So this is not the topic of this video. Coming back to the topic, coming back to the second example that I witnessed of the you do not know argument. This was the case of the evolution of the eye, where the evolutionists postulate that the eye has evolved, the eye of the octopus has evolved from the eye spot of the euglena. The eye spot of the euglena can detect the presence of light, and the eye cup present in some marine animals can detect the presence of light as well as the direction of light. The eye and the tunnel-shaped eye of some marine animals can actually see an image, as it resembles a pinhole camera that results in the production of an image. So the animals with a tunnel-shaped eye can actually see an image, and the animals with a rudimentary lens, for example the snails, can also see an image and they can focus it. This is advanced in the octopus, where a proper lens is formed and the octopus can see an image and can focus it. So this sequence is presented by the evolutionists as a proof of the evolution of the eye. There is a presupposition in this sequence that the eye of the euglena is changed to the eye, the cap-shaped eye, and then to the tunnel-shaped eye, and then to the eye with the lens. For the cup-shaped euglena, for the eye spot to change into the cup-shaped eye, you need to have additional genetic information or additional proteins. Where are they going to come from? The genetic information required for this conversion, where is it going to come from? Mutation or chromosome aberrations or selection cannot add genetic material. Selection and mutation and other such mechanisms that occur in genetics, they only alter the genetic information that is already present. So this is impossible that genetic information will be added to macroscopic animals by any mechanism. Mutation cannot add genetic information. Similar is the case for the transformation from the cup eye to the tunnel eye, and from the tunnel eye to the eye with lens. For the formation of the lens, you need the protein that form the lens, and you need the genetic information. You need the DNA that will code for those proteins. You also need the DNA that will code for the suspensory apparatus that will hold the lens in place, and the ciliary muscles that will be coded for the DNA, additional DNA. So you need additional DNA in order to form an eye. So there's no evidence in the fact that the eye spot is changed to the octopus eye through intermediate stages. Just by showing a few animals and imagining them to be stages of evolution is not the scientific method. The scientific method requires something to be proven, and this is not proven. If somebody says that selection operated upon the octopus and selection was due to the fact that there was a protein deficiency in the environment, so an octopus, uh, a population of octopus developed without the lens because proteins were not there for the formation of the lens, and then due to further selection the eye lost its shape of the pinhole camera or the cup shape due to the enormous uh, deficiency of the proteins in the environment. Ultimately it changed it into the equine eye, the eye spot. There will be no answer to this argument that the octopus eye changed to a galena eye spot when faced with the problem of protein deficiency, chronic protein deficiency. This is the result if we argue on the lines that the evolutionists are arguing on. So, yes, the variation is present in animals, and variation may be present in the eye spot of the iglina, but the variation will not be sufficient to change the eye spot to a cup-shaped eye or a pinhole camera, etc. No example of this fact has been shown. No example of this fact has been shown. This is a simple attempt to rule out creationism. All these animals actually have been created by the creator, and all the genetic information that is required for the various systems to function, for the eyes of the different animals to function, it has already been designed by the creator according to the particular requirements of the animals. Whether the animal is a small animal like Egelina, who needs only to know where if light is present or not, and on the octopus, who needs to focus the prey or the predator, and he also needs to see the prey or predator. The marine animals with a pinhole camera need to see the predator, and the marine animals that have a cup need to know the direction of light. So the various eyes are designed for the environment that the animals have to live in. The third, when this explanation was provided to this evolutionist, he said that you do not understand evolution. So this is yet another case of the you do not know argument. Another case of the you do not know argument is that uh, when I said to an evolutionist that when selection occurs, then the population on which selection occurs, in that population only the selected individuals should survive, and only the species that natural selection selects should survive. the other species should perish. That is to say, in the present example, a gorilla should perish if some animal evolved from a gorilla, and some animal with a cup-shaped eye evolved from a gorilla. If that animal had a selective advantage, then a gorilla should perish. This is what selection is. That is choosing the parents of the next generation. In a similar fashion, the octopus, if it evolved from the lower species that we have mentioned, then the lower species should perish because due to selection pressure, only octopus withstood the selection pressure and the other species perish. That is what selection is. And when this argument was advanced to the evolutionists, that why are the species from which you think the modern species evolved present? Why are the species that you imagine at the bottom of the evolutionary tree still present and living? So this is a very strong argument that shakes the foundations of the imagined evolutionary tree. Upon this he replied that you do not know evolution. It is not necessary that selection will choose those species or individuals who have selected advantage, but the rest of the population may also survive. This is utter nonsense. So what is then selection? If all the individuals of the population are surviving, then there is no meaning of the word selection. In passing, it must be said that when the fossil evidence is plotted, then we do not get an evolutionary tree. Instead, we get a distribution of the various species. We get an inverted tree. That is, there are more species at the bottom than there are at the top because some of the species have become extinct. So this was a brief introduction of the Edicna argument.